The debate around electoral bonds continues and the questions are mounting. Why were loss-making companies allowed to purchase bonds? Was the State Bank of India meant to keep an alphanumeric code of the bonds or not? And many more such questions. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. On our platform, just a few hours ago, you heard former finance secretary and the top bureaucrat who was tasked with implementing the bonds, Subhash Garg, sharing his views. His comments, especially his comment that the State Bank of India was never meant to keep a tracking record of the alphanumerics, has generated a lot of debate. In the last few hours, we've had many questions, many comments, and many suggestions as to better questions or sharper questions that we could have posed. So we thought, why not bring Mr. Garg back, but also bring into this dialogue one of the key petitioners in the case. Remember, it was the Association of Democratic Reforms that was a key petitioner that challenged the electoral bonds. The Supreme Court has since struck down the bonds, objecting to the anonymity that upheld them as secretive. And Subhash Garg has, in his interview with me and other interviews, made the point that it doesn't look like the State Bank of India was even upholding that anonymity principle to begin with. So on this very unusual electoral bonds dialogue, I prefer to call it a dialogue rather than a debate. Let me welcome our two guests today, the petitioner in this case, as well as the bureaucrat who actually was tasked with implementing the bond. So I think you couldn't get two better people on different sides of the trenches, the ideological trenches on this particular issue, at least, to talk about this case. And I will start actually with you, Jagdeep Chhokar, because Professor Chhokar did call me this morning, Mr. Garg, and he felt that that there were many questions I should have asked you, I should have pinpointed, and I did not do that. So I said, sir, you are the expert, so you must come and help me ask better questions. So one of the central controversies, Subhash Garg, that you generated was your comment that the alphanumeric codes were not meant to be kept by the State Bank of India. आपने कल भी ये बोला, आप पहले भी ये बोल चुके हैं. So the point has been made that a fellow journalist, Poonam Agarwal, had purchased a bond. In that bond, she discovered that a serial number was visible in ultraviolet light. And in 2018, when the story came out, the government at that time said that there was no tracking happening. You agree with that. You say no tracking was actually meant to happen. But the tracking clearly has happened, right? That's clear. Now, please explain, to start with, were these alphanumeric codes meant to exist or were they not meant to exist?
So, Barkha, I don't think this statement is correct that the tracking was taking place. Recording alphanumeric numbers unlawfully and in a secretive manner by SBI beyond the mandate of the scheme in a clandestine manner, which was not available to anyone until after the Supreme Court judgment, was not a tracking thing. I would ask you, and I think Mr. Chhokar can confirm this as well, despite that story in early 2018, which we had in fact clarified then and there itself that we have some security.
And that clarification is on the screen, what the PIB said in 2018, that this is a random serial number and it is not meant for tracking purposes. That was the clarification, correct?
This was not an identification number. This is only for security purpose. And this cannot be and is not required to be recorded and to be tracked by anyone. So this despite this clarification, and I think that clarification was credible enough that everyone really forgot about whether the alphanumeric number or any security feature actually existed. And that's where I was posing this question to Mr. Chhokar for confirmation. What I'm saying is that until the Supreme Court delivered its judgment, I'm not saying before, until the Supreme Court delivered its judgment, post that, did anyone, including the petitioners who Mr. Chhokar represented, ever used in any of the petition or in argument that there existed any alphanumeric number, or for that matter, even Supreme Court used or referred to this in its judgment, right? The fact is that no one really knew about it. No one really thought this existed. And that is, to my mind, the perfect proof. There was suspicion. There was suspicion in the civil society that there is some way the
So what
government is.
was the number? I'll get Jagdeep ji in a second, but what was the number that was visible under the UV light? The invisible number embedded on the bond. What was that number, according to you,
That's what I'm
Subhash?
saying. This is that alphanumeric number embedded
G.
as a security feature.
So you knew
Not
it was embedded. It was embedded as a security feature, not meant to track, according to you.
absolutely. This
Okay.
was designed as a security feature. But please, I think, take what I'm saying seriously, that no one actually took note of this number or found this out. It was two things which later on sort of combined to make this a phenomenon as it is today. Number one, that silly mistake by SBI to say that we will provide you a matching if you give us 4 months time. People's antenna then got sort of risen, definitely, that if there is something matching, if the SBI can match, what is that they can match on? And also, I may be a partial culprit for that. In your show and elsewhere, I started mentioning that there is an alphanumeric number, which
Yes.
is the only way you can actually link. Otherwise, you can't link it at all.
So
Right.
I am still confused, but I'm going to bring in Jagdeep ji in, because one thing I don't understand is that if there is a code and it is embedded, तो कोई तो उसको track कर रहा है. Maybe it's never meant to come in the public domain, but कोई तो उसको track कर रहा है. But Professor Chhokar, let me bring you in. You're the key petitioner. It's a big victory for you, but the debate is carrying on. You heard Mr. Garg make many comments that you felt I should have done a better follow-up on. So here we are back. Jagdeep ji, go ahead.
Well, first of all, we need an hour and a half program to discuss your discussion with Mr. Garg yesterday. Mr. Garg, you will forgive me if I quote you as I saw you on the video yesterday. You said at 2.45, there was no identification number on the bond. Now, let me interpret it for myself. There was a number on the bond. Whether it was identification number or a security number or a telephone number or the date, there was a number which was not visible to the naked eye, but which was visible under the ultraviolet light. Mr. Garg, you also said yesterday, and please forgive me, people were not aware that there was an alphanumeric code. And you said nobody ever mentioned it anywhere. Yes, I cannot say whether it was mentioned on the petition or in the arguments in the court, but I myself have written many articles and I have spoken about it in many places that there is an alphanumeric number which was said to be not there, but which is there. And subsequently, sir, you also said, there was nothing mentioned about this in the scheme because SBI was not formally required to, FBI was not formally told not to record it because there was no point in recording anything in a scheme which did not exist. And then you also went on to say a very interesting thing. This was my problem. You said the whole world came to know of this in the Supreme Court judgment. तो मुझे लगा पूनम अग्रवाल को बड़ा दुख होगा कि उसने 2000 रुपए खर्च किए और किसी को पता भी नहीं चला. And then you also said that it was not part of the scheme. It was not part of the system. If it was not part of the scheme, it was not part of the system, how did it get embedded on the physical bond? And nobody did anything about it because only people who bought bonds could have done anything about it. And they were not interested in doing anything about it. So you are absolutely right. Nobody did anything. But वो उसके लिए तो 2000 रुपया 1000 रुपया खर्च करना पड़ता है. वो तो है नहीं हमारे पास.
So I'm very happy to note that your interview and our interview has been very carefully watched. But I think the questions are quite. मुझे भी कुछ confusion है, Subhash ji. Picking up on Jagdeep ji's points, you yourself say that there is the number embedded on the bonds, which is visible in the UV light, which is the story that Poonam Agarwal broke. Correct? Let's go step by step. You agree with this, Subhash ji?
So this is not an identification number. It's a security feature embedded for the security purposes. It doesn't exist anywhere.
number तो है ना.
अरे भाई number we do in our currency notes we have 17 security features.
The simple question is, was there a number embedded in the electoral bond or not?
Can I ask a question? The number that is embedded on the bond, is that the number that has now come out in the public domain? Because if it is the same number, we are surmising.
Barkha, it
Yes.
is irrelevant.
Okay.
Yes. No, this is the number which has come out.
So then that means it was always being tracked, sir. If the number on the bond is the number that has come out, then it was always being tracked. Acha, okay, Jagdeep, you ask.
My question is not whether it was tracked or not. My question is, or my contention is, the number existed. And for anyone, however so high and respectable, due apologies, Mr. Garg, to say that the number did not exist. I mean, I just can't accept this. There is a number which is meant for XYZ. To say that there was no number, I mean, I find it very strange to reconcile these two statements.
I can understand, Chhokar Saab, your predicament, but please understand the difference between a security feature and an identification number. Security feature can be anything. It could be a picture, it can be a number, it can be anything, right? For maybe we did not think it that important it to be. We chose the number as the security feature. Suppose we had put some pictures or some mixed up security feature. So this is any identification number is what is there on the bond visible to everyone. What is invisible is not the identification number. It's not supposed to exist for anyone.
Right. The number that was embedded. The number that was embedded.
Yes.
ये क्या number था? ये क्या number था? One second, Mr. Garg. हाँ, आप बताइए. हाँ, what was that number?
This is what the alphanumeric number which has come out. Which was
so the number on the bond meant to be visible only in UV light is the alphanumeric code that is now in the public domain.
I don't know, Barkha. Why can't you differentiate this being something on the bond and something in the bond, inside the bond? What is something on the bond? There was nothing on the bond. There is a difference.
I let Jagdeep ji come in. I am not the expert in this case. Jagdeep ji, please go ahead.
There is a difference, linguistically speaking, between in and on. But seriously speaking, going on semantic, the number that was put in the bond could be used also for tracking. And as it turns out, it seemed to have been used for tracking. So to say that it was only meant for security and we could have put some other feature, whoa, that would have been great if another feature would have been put which could not have been used for tracking. The fact that the feature put in for security had the potential of being used as tracking and subsequent events show it was actually used for tracking, to me rings a bell. That the purpose was not so innocent that it was only for tracking और उसकी जगह फोटो लगाइए, watermark लगाइए, बहुत कुछ लगाइए. But the feature that came out, which was, let me reiterate, which was first not disclosed deliberately, I would say, although it may not be deliberate, but I have a right to say that. Then it was found by some buddy, XYZ, let us not harass one person. When it came to light, it was said it is for this purpose. But the feature had the potentiality to be used for another purpose, which actually, as Mr. Garg says, sabotaged the entire scheme. So the selection, the selection of the feature was faulty. Whether
So
the
let me.
faulty was whether the faulty was by mistake or deliberate, I don't know.
It's a very fair question, and I want to
No,
add
no,
one question. Can I add a question? Can I add
no,
Can I add one? अच्छा, आप पहले बोलिए, आप पहले बोलिए, बोलिए,
no,
बोलिए,
I
Garg.
must respond to this. See, this is true. Potentially, this number could have been used for tracking. I don't deny this, right? But that was possible only if the issuer notes it against the person to which it was issued, a bond was issued. And again, it is recorded against the political party which deposited the bond. If you don't do this, even if the number exists, even if the alphanumeric number existed inside the bond, there is no way you can match it. Because if you have not noted against a buyer that who bought a particular bond and against a political party which deposited it, you can't again match it, right? So the SBI was specifically very clearly directed as per the scheme not to note it.
Can
And
I ask a
therefore,
question? Can I ask a
yes,
question? You have agreed with Jagdeep ji that there is an alphanumeric embedded on the bond, right?
oh, yeah, not
For
Jagdeep ji,
security.
this we had agreed in 2018 itself.
But in 2018, can I go back to the previous slide on our screen? In 2018, the government says, can I go back to this is a random serial number that cannot be used to track transactions. This is the PIB press release in 2018, correct?
Exactly.
ठीक है?
This is a random number.
ठीक
This
है.
is a random number which cannot be used for tracking unless somebody records it illegally.
So this means all through the SBI has been illegally recording these numbers. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that is a big statement, and I want to get Jagdeep ji in. Jagdeep ji, go ahead.
In defense of CBI, as famously the Solicitor General said in the court, I am not appearing for SBI. But let me say that Mr. Garg says that issuer was told not to record it. But yesterday he said there was no point in writing anything for something that did not exist. So how can today we say SBI was specifically instructed not to record it? Yesterday there was not to be recorded because the number didn't exist. ये कल और आज में क्या फर्क हो गया?
Mr. Chhokar, these two are the same statement. There is no point in going into semantics post haste.
This is not semantics, sir.
Yeah, it is. You see, why was SBI? The SBI had given a very, very detailed. If you care to read the scheme guidelines, there is a very detailed format which somebody need to present at the time of application. Hundreds of information are asked. It provides a column for recording everything, but not recording the alphanumeric code because it did not exist. Right?
It did exist.
No, this is semantics. It did not exist practically for anyone. This was embedded as a security measure, which is very different than it existed.
Sir, who all could access this embedded number? No one. No one means?
No one. Except.
No one means?
No one.
No, it was embedded. If I bought the bond, if I bought the bond, the person who bought the bond could access it, correct? The person who bought the bond?
He can do it.
Okay. So ये जो SBI, ये जो data, when you say the alphanumeric doesn't exist, you mean for all practical purposes, it was not meant to exist, but it did exist. It was embedded on the. Okay, it was embedded in the bond. Yes. In the bond, it was inside the bond.
It was inside the bond.
So how has it been recorded to the detail? Okay, so how has it been recorded to the detail that it has today? Was the SBI at fault then, or is the SBI at fault today?
It was at fault at the time when they issued and received by noting this clandestinely and unlawfully. And it was at a bigger fault. It was at a bigger fault when, in response to what Supreme Court asked, that give us the bond details in terms of the date of the issue, the amount of the issue, and the buyer. Three information were to be given, and here comes the SBI, whatever very saying that we will match it if you give us 4 months.
No.
Okay, Jagdeep ji.
No. I mean, Mr. Garg may say it is semantic, but yesterday I will read the instructions once again. I have read them twice. I will read them again, and I will I'll come back to you with the specific expressions. But yesterday's statement by Mr. Garg, which is on tape, is that there was no need to record anything about the alphanumeric number because
Absolutely.
it did not exist.
It did
Now,
not exist.
if there was nothing recorded,
purposes.
if there was nothing recorded, how the SBI was to know that it is not supposed to record it? It could not. It was silent because it did not exist.
Mr. Chhokar, I would suggest you go through the entire process of discussion and examination. SBI was very keen to have an audit trail. They wanted to record the number both ways. They approached us in the government that allow us to record this, record something, give us something to record. At that time, the bonds had not been printed, right? They sent, I think this is in the public domain now, those exchanges of letters.
The file notices are in the public domain.
Exactly. These are in public domain. SBI wanted to track, to do the audit trail, and therefore to embed some number somewhere on the bond so that they can track it. But the whole thing was examined, and the idea or the proposal of SBI was shot down. The only thing it was told to them was that there is some security feature which can be sort of looked at if.
So you are saying, Mr. Garg, that the SBI illegally, in violation of the rules of the electoral bonds at that time, made separate notings of this number that was otherwise embedded in this bond. I'm saying in now, not on. Mr. Chhokar, just 1 minute. One of our viewers says, Barkha, it's as simple as shopkeepers tracking currency note serial number with the Aadhaar of the person using the currency note. Do you see this analogy?
No, I don't see. The currency note has a serial number on it. Not inside it. No one tracks the currency note with the security feature, one of the 17 security features embedded inside the currency note. There is whole world of a difference between the serial number which is on the currency note and nothing.
Sir, it's the same serial number that is now out. Serial number
now it is out. Now it is out, and not only the number is out, number could have ever been, like Poonam Agarwal or anyone could have seen the number if they knew that the only thing which is required is ultraviolet light. But this is of no use for the system unless it is recorded by SBI.
It is. No, there are a couple of things here. Number one, first we were talking about the instructions issued when the electoral bond scheme was notified. Mr. Garg yesterday said there was no mention of the number in that scheme, in that description, because it did not exist. Today, he said the SBI was told that they should not record this number. These two statements need to be cross-checked. I will cross-check from the detailed description. I will do that from the scheme.
Please do, Mr. Chhokar. If you can find out any of the scheme instructions or communication which tells SBI that the alphanumeric code exists and you are supposed to record it.
No. I am saying exactly the opposite.
Please find out.
No, the scheme does not say that the alphanumeric code exists. I agree. But the scheme does not say anything to the SBI whether to record it or not record it, according to your statement, because the alphanumeric code did not exist. Now you are saying SBI was told that they should not record it. These two, my dear sir, are different. Number two, let
No,
me.
both
Mr. Garg, एक minute. Jagdeep, do you finish your point? Then Mr. Garg,
let me have.
I
Both these
need to
statements-
finish.
अच्छा,
Yeah,
okay,
but-
one, okay. एक करके, Jagdeep ji, and then Mr. Garg. Jagdeep ji, please.
What I get a sense of from today's discussion, which is a kind of a discovery to me, that the real intention was that the buyer can note down the number, because the buyer has access to the physical bond. The buyer can look at it under the ultraviolet thing and note down the number. The redeemer can also see the number and record down. Only the buyer and the redeemer were supposed to see it. Nobody else. This is my understanding. But
No.
okay, please go ahead. Please correct this understanding. I would like to know that.
Yes, that's correct. So
And why did you say no?
that's what I'm explaining. Since this was a non-existent feature, buyer or the political party, if they knew it, they could note it. But it is not, the scheme was not supposed to tell them that you note it. There is a difference.
No. No, scheme
Right.
was not supposed to tell them. Agreed. And scheme
Right.
didn't tell them.
So that is
But
your
I-
statement. Let me now respond to your statement. Seems to
I didn't
indicate-
finish my statement, sir.
Right,
Anyway, go ahead.
right.
Respond.
Exactly. So anyone like Poonam Agarwal, anyone who could decipher it can note it. We don't care. But it does not matter until SBI records it at both the end. And to come back to your earlier statement about you going, please do that research. It would be
I will do
useful.
that.
Right. But find out, if you can, any express.
I'm not even saying you. I'm not
No,
looking for that.
no,
I am
no.
looking
In
for. I am
in
looking
the
for
guidelines.
SBI being told not to record it.
Okay, let's ask you that directly,
No,
Mr. Garg.
no,
You
no,
said
no,
the
let me-
SBI.
no,
एक minute. You
Barkha ji,
said.
no,
Acha,
एक minute, Barkha ji. I
Okay.
must
Okay.
either any express mention in the scheme guidelines or correspondence about the number or to record it, or even an implicit. That's what I'm
Agreed.
giving a challenge to you. Any implicit communication which expected or allowed SBI to record it.
Can I
I
ask you
would-
the opposite? Can I ask you the reverse question?
Yes.
Was there an explicit instruction to SBI to not record the embedded number? You said that the SBI illegally, aapne bola bhi, the SBI illegally noted this number. It was embedded in the bond. It was not meant for any third person collation, right? Which clearly has happened. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the data. Was there a specific instruction to the SBI? क्योंकि आपने कहा SBI ने audit trail की इच्छा prefer express की थी. Were they told at that time that no, you cannot record the numbers?
See, their request or suggestion was shot down, and they were only told in writing that there is something we will build into the bond as a security feature, which is printed by someone else, right? Now, to respond to your observation, that was SBI expressly told not to record the alphanumeric number. I think we were not that foolish, that we will sort of suggest that there exists a number and you don't record it. Now, this is an incredible.
It is.
My head is spinning now. But Jagdeep ji.
It is. Can I speak?
Yes, please.
It is equally incredible, sir. That expression that you used, and I love it. Non-existent feature. There is a non-existent feature. Just look at the three words. Non-existent feature. A non-existent feature exists. ये भी वही बात है सर, कि स्कीम उसमें था नहीं, और स्कीम में लिख देते तो उनको पता लग जाता, लेकिन नॉन एग्जिस्टेंट था, लेकिन था।
चोखर साहब,
किसी ने लिख के बोला, can we replace the word exist with visible?
No, Mr. Chokar, I'll give you the proof of the fact that for the world it did not exist. Is the fact. Please get your petition. Did you use this expression that there is an alphanumeric code even once? Was this brought? Let me finish. Was this brought at any point of the long arguments which happened over 5 or 6 years period? Did the Supreme Court use this in its detailed judgment even once? Now, can there be a bigger proof of something being completely non-existent for the world? If this
who all was it existent for? 1 minute. Who all did this number exist for?
It existed only in case there is a situation where SBI ended up getting more bonds for encashment than it had issued. If that situation had arisen, for example, if we receive a lot of fake notes in the banking system, we will take those fake notes to the currency chest and the press to find out whether this is a fake note or not. So that situation, in our judgment, and I think this is borne out by the fact that there was very little possibility of fake electoral bonds actually coming in. No, not a single fake bond came. So if no fake bond was to come, there was no occasion for anyone to ever use the security feature.
Now, the bonds are being called by somebody in our audience stream, Prasad Duvuri. He's written boys, he means bonds, are quasi-currency. Do we accept this definition that they're quasi-currency?
Of course, this was quasi-currency. The bond is also a quasi-currency. It was a bearer promissory note. The RBI Act was amended to provide for, because RBI is in charge of issuing currency. Currency is also a promissory note of the central bank. And therefore, the act had to be amended for a limited duration bearer bonds.
Okay, Jagdeep ji.
Now I need some time.
Okay.
First of all, we were discussing the details of the scheme as issued, including all the annexures, which you have caught on and you have said was there a mention, etc. Then Mr. Garg moved to the file notings which are in the public domain, which I have seen. I may not remember them as clearly as Mr. Garg remembers, because he wrote those. I only read a copy. In that, there was certainly this mention that State Bank wanted a number, etc. But I will have to, they are available. I will read them right after this. So we are moving from one written document to another. Number 3, the fact that the alphanumeric number was not mentioned in the petition or in the argument, how does that prove that it did not exist? Because before the petition was argued in October 23, I had written 10 or 20 articles on the subject. So if we don't mention it, we don't have to mention everything in the petition. We mentioned what we had only asked. Just a minute. We had only asked for the scheme to be declared unconstitutional. We had not even asked for these details to be given. This is the Supreme Court who, in their wisdom, or you might say lack of it, they decided to get this information out. We did not feel the need to raise these points, because all we were looking for is to get the scheme declared unconstitutional. And in that discussion, this did not need to be raised. And the proof of the pudding is that the judgment has come out without raising this issue. But that is not a proof of non-existence. You know, the moon rises in the east or the west. We didn't mention that, but that happens.
Mr. Chhokar, if I can respond to you, some number which has become so all-important now was a completely unimportant for you to even mention once in the petition, to mention even once during the argument. And by the way, I have said this, I will reiterate this. The Supreme Court's judgment did not ask for it in the first instance. It's only after this became all-important public knowledge that in the second order or the third order, the Supreme Court mentioned for the first time that give us the alphanumeric number, right? So this is a post-event discovery. Please never, to my mind, believe that you had associated such a lasting value or such a big value to this code, which did not exist.
So we did not. And that's why I say that all we had asked for is declaring the scheme unconstitutional. But you cannot say, or you can say, but I won't agree with you, that I did not know about it. I knew about it since 2018. I have written about it. I've spoken about it. I mean, in the Supreme Court, one doesn't have to say, as I said, everything under the sun.
Can I come?
I have one
minute. Let me complete. Let me complete. The Supreme Court gave an order which was inclusive, it said all information, including this. And the simple reading of law is, when you say including, that means this is part of the information. It is not the only information. Supreme Court orders was absolutely correctly worded. The Supreme Court was, as they said in the hearing subsequently, they expected more candor from the State Bank of India. They did not expect what happened. And it is that lack of candor which led to whole thing coming out. If the SBI had been honest to the Supreme Court, they would have, things would have moved very easily. But the SBI was under this, SBI perhaps was living with this illusion that this is a non-existent feature. I love this expression, non-existent feature.
So, Barkha, I have two comments on it. Number one, Mr. Chhokar is saying, and I agree with that statement, that their intention was to get the scheme declared unconstitutional. What I would like to you to note is that if they had argued that there existed a alphanumeric number which the government of the day or the SBI can actually use to track who is donating to whom, there could not have been a bigger argument for getting this scheme unconstitutionally declared unconstitutional. Second, this inclusive argument is also a creation later. If you didn't know, if the Supreme Court did not know about the alphanumeric number at the time, it could not have asked as an inclusive information.
I'm sorry.
I again say,
the Supreme Court said inclusive in their judgment on 15th of February.
You can interpret anything inclusive today, but this was not. If it was as important as it has turned out to be today, it should have been mentioned.
Can I ask you something, sir? Can I ask Mr. Garg something? You have confirmed, because many people are asking, are we sure that the number embedded in the bond is the same as the number that is now out in public domain? It is, right? You have no doubt in your mind about
that. I am assuming it, because
we're all assuming. We're all assuming. Now,
earlier it was,
and SBI has declared it, so it must be. No, of course, this amounts to that, because the alphanumeric number which SBI has disclosed against each of the bond is what they must have found on the bond itself, and they must have noted against each of the buyer and the depositor. So that is what it is. But there is no other security measure other than this. That is what.
Sir, but if I write a letter to you in invisible ink, and only you can wash off some chemical and read the letter still exists. I have written it to you in invisible ink, but the letter exists. So, when you say the number doesn't exist, that's where I'm very confused.
There is a difference between something which exists and something which does not exist for the world at large.
This is now beginning to feel like, is there a God?
There are a lot of physical. There are a lot of physical phenomenon which you are not even conscious of. Right. Today, we have over the years discovered many things about the light or the electromagnetic phenomenon. We didn't know many things. We did not know many things about. So things exist.
So did the number exist for practical purpose? Did the number exist for practical purposes? No.
No, nothing.
Can I say something?
Yes,
I,
yes,
Barkha,
yes.
then
yes.
I am reminded of an Urdu शेर.
जी.
सिर्फ एहसास है ये, रूह से महसूस करो, प्यार को प्यार ही रहने दो, कोई नाम न दो. So
No, इसमें तो महसूस no,
let me
इसमें तो
rephrase. Let me rephrase. सिर्फ एहसास है ये, रूह से महसूस करो, अल्फा न्यूमेरिक नंबर को कोई नाम न दो.
No, you are absolutely wrong. ये तो एहसास भी नहीं है, इसको महसूस करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है.
अरे सर, आपके ख्याल में तो ये है ही नहीं, लेकिन है. ये कमाल है सर, ये कमाल तो भारत सरकार ही कर सकती है कि ये है और नहीं भी है.
छोकर साहब, whether God exists or not exist.
You tell me. You know what exists and what does not exist. I only know what exists. मैंने तो जो देखा है वो मैं जानता हूँ. आपने देखी है चीजें जो do not exist. आप बताइए.
So for many people God exists.
सर, मैं आपसे पूछ रहा हूँ और आप मुझसे पूछ रहे हैं.
अच्छा, let's. Okay, Mr. Garg, you are losing us in wordsmithery. The serious question is, all jokes aside, the serious question is, if the serious question is, in your understanding, the number was meant to be only there for security purposes. Within who all was supposed to know about it? I'm asking that again. It's a very important. जब किसी ने उस नंबर को बॉन्ड में इम्बेड किया, तो किन किन लोगों को उस नंबर की डिटेल्स अवेलेबल थी? किन किन लोगों को?
We have a printing press where the security papers are printed. That minute is also available in the public domain. Now, people have taken, without mentioning specifically the alphanumeric code, the printing press, the CMD, I think chaired that meeting. That minute is also now available in the public domain, that we will build some security feature here. So they were aware because they printed it. We print so many security features in our notes and passports and other things which exist but don't exist.
This is which exists but don't exist. क्या बात है? Very good, sir. I am totally, I agree with you.
अब क्या होगा? ये how do we resolve this argument? Because I have another set of.
No, Barkha, this argument cannot be resolved.
You don't have to resolve. It doesn't matter.
We don't have to resolve.
But if the SBI has Gargji, if the SBI has illegally noted numbers they were not supposed to, so then what action should be taken against the SBI? Are these whistleblowers or are they guilty? ये क्या है?
That you and the civil society may decide, because SBI has now turned out to be, earlier the civil society was assuming that the SBI is a handmaiden of the government, was noting it only for the purpose of providing it to the government, which is not borne out by the fact that this is the political way of funding where the ruling party received the least amount, right, in proportion, right? But now these numbers are available, and it's providing lots of evidence for people to construct the scenarios of who was funding whom, whether ED was acting in line to do that. In fact, something which they were absolutely against and suspected SBI of having done, now that that information has become available, I'm not sure whether SBI provided this to the government earlier or not. In my judgment, they did not. Otherwise, the government would not have ended up receiving only 50%. But now that information is available, let the civil society either thank the SBI for having done something.
So, depending on your point of view, the SBI is either a whistleblower or a culpable in breaking the law. But yes, Jagdeep ji. Yes.
Mr. Garg has very kindly said the SBI, the civil society assumed or suspected. Yesterday, he gave us a lot of reasons why SBI did so. He said, I don't think they did it deliberately to do this. They were trying to do this. He was telling us several assumptions or his assessment of why the SBI might have done it. So he was guessing the intentions of the SBI. Today, he is guessing the intentions of the civil society. I don't speak on behalf of civil society, but I am a part of civil society. Therefore, I would say at least some part of the civil society did not assume that. So therefore,
Did not assume what?
Sorry?
Did not assume what?
Did not assume that SBI was giving it to the government and government was giving it to the political party. And I mean, we were looking for transparency. And the fact is, I have said this repeatedly, we did not ask for all this. And we did not, as Mr. Garg has repeatedly said very eloquently, we did not mention the number at all anywhere in the petition. We never wanted it. We only wanted the constitutional issue to be resolved. So we, as a member of civil society, I can say we did not make any assumptions. We were wanting a scheme which we thought was faulty because there were things which are non-existent but were existing. Now we know what they were. Earlier we did not know, we suspected. So we only were looking for transparency in political funding, and that, according to me, we have moved a step forward.
Okay, can we
So
spend the
I
last...
have no problem. I take note of it.
Can we end just with one last question that we haven't discussed about loss-making companies? One of the things that you said, Mr. Garg, yesterday was that companies that were within the ambit of the law when they purchased the bonds today may come under renewed scrutiny because that amendment to the Companies Act, among other acts, has actually been read down. Now, I tried to ask you yesterday also, so I'll start with that. What was the thought behind allowing loss-making companies to buy the bonds?
See, I would tell you that by the time the amendments were made in the Companies Act, I was not on the scene. The amendments were made by the finance bill, which was introduced with the budget of 2017-18. Right, all these amendments. I joined in July 2017. Right, the amendments were made in 17. Right, February 17. So what went behind this at the time when these provisions were made is not in my personal knowledge. In fact, this was not such a matter which engaged attention at any point of time until the Supreme Court made that the principal reason of declaring this the amendment as unconstitutional. Right. We had some discussions on the way something, and from that I gathered, and which I had said yesterday, that the rationale was twofold. Number one, that you expand the avenues available for the political funding. So you remove the restrictions which the companies were subject to. Number one, that 7.5% limit of the profit. And second, the loss-making companies cannot make the donation. So if you remove these two restrictions, the scope for political funding to the electoral bonds or otherwise expand. That's number one. Number two, which is I believe to be fair reason, not necessarily whether this was argued out at the time when the amendments were actually carried out. As I said, I was not there. There is no reason in my judgment to distinguish between a loss-making and a profit-making company as far as the political donations are concerned. The level playing field, in my judgment, would require that anyone, whether you're
what is the intent? Why do you want to donate if you don't have surplus funds? Why would you want to?
I think this I have described number of times. We've discussed in your channel as well. You are living in a world where the government is too much onto the back and interfering with the businesses. The businesses cannot exist, cannot function without actually making contributions to the political parties, ruling parties mostly, whether it's in the center or in the state. And therefore, loss-making companies also who are doing business required to do exactly what the profit-making companies do. Right. So why deprive them of this level playing field?
That is clearly an admission that the entire purpose of any political finance is for businesses to be able to survive or thrive.
You may like to believe anything. This is my belief, that the political parties receive donations from the businesses which further the interest of the businesses as well as further the interest of the political party.
Okay, fair enough. Jagdeep ji, isn't it tricky? Yes, isn't it true कि अभी इससे पहले कैश होता था, इसके बाद भी कैश होगा? मोटिवेशन तो सेम ही थी.
नहीं, मैं जरा before I go on to the cash, let me respond to what Mr. Garg said, and this is in all seriousness. And as you rightly said, so the motivation is that if profit-making companies are bribing political parties to get favors done, this quid pro quo and etc. are very nice words, but they hide that I am paying money to get something done which I want done. If profit-making companies are free to bribe political parties, so should loss-making companies be. Now, this is the level playing field that we are talking about. If we as a society, and particularly the government, the scheme was made by the government, if the government is accepting or is willing to accept by implication that bribing political parties in return for favors is acceptable, and even loss-making companies should be allowed to do that, I only feel very sad about it. I know Mr. Garg will say this is empty idealism and pragmatism. That's perfectly fine. And as he said, you can believe what you like. He is welcome to believe that. But for me to believe or to accept that the government of my country is following this principle that if bribing is a fact of life, let everybody bribe. ठीक है? This is what I think about loss-making companies.
Okay,
I need to respond. I need to
Yes,
respond
please.
to this. I
Please.
think sort of reducing it to only bribe is actually a very wrong to my mind. There is definitely an element of bribe also which takes place in the world, but there is a lot of genuine business which takes place. Quid pro quo is a more appropriate word, so I don't want to use the word bribing. Right? They there are many reasons why it might be happening. So it's, but all I would stand by is what I've said, that for whatever purpose, if a profit-making company can make a political donation, there is no reason for a loss-making company to deny that. Now,
So you're
that
saying
is
कि अगर गलत है तो दोनों के लिए गलत है.
exactly
You're saying कि अगर गलत है, अगर
the
ब्राइब है तो दोनों ही ब्राइब
distinction.
कर रहे हैं. अगर
Exactly.
गलत है, क्यों, अगर क्विड प्रो क्वो है तो दोनों ही कर रहे हैं.
Exactly. So you can't
Okay.
distinguish between the profit-making company that it
Okay.
can make a political donation, whereas the loss-making company cannot.
Okay.
The
Jagdeep ji.
the empty idealism response to this would be दोनों के लिए गलत है, तो हम
Yes,
गलत
please.
को प्रमोट, गलत के लिए गलत को प्रमोट करेंगे एज भारत सरकार. हम ये नहीं कहेंगे कि जो एक मिनट दैट जो ठीक कर रहे हैं, उन जो गलत कर रहे हैं उनको भी रोको, बजाय उनको जो गलत नहीं कर रहे हैं उनको भी गलत करने के लिए कहो. ये मेरी प्रॉब्लम है.
Okay.
Exactly. So this is the problem for which a solution has been found now to sort of declare the electoral bond scheme unconstitutional. Fair enough. Now the electoral bond scheme will not be used for making this kind of donations. Fair enough. What will you do? Right.
Very good.
That unfortunately is not what we. By the way, I am again saying with responsibility that the court has highest ideals to sort of protect and our fundamental rights and other things. But in the economic sphere, many times we have seen, you go to 2G case, you go to coal licenses being sort of disallowed, or that direction that you will not have liquor sales in 500 meters or whatever of the national highways, etc. These were all idealistic decisions. But what did it do to our businesses? We must also ask, as a concerned citizen who is interested in bringing prosperity to the nation and raise our incomes, that what is the economic fallout of these decisions?
I think there is a fair question that I must put to Jagdeep ji. What has changed now that these bonds have gone? There is two points we haven't discussed. One, even when it comes to, let's say, quid pro quo debate or companies like Aurobindo Pharma, irrespective of whether these alphanumerics were meant to exist, not exist, existed in the ether, they now exist in the public domain, and we've been able to match. अगर ये कैश पेमेंट का जमाना होता तो हमें कभी पता ही नहीं लगता. Question 1. Question 2. Now what, Jagdeep ji? We're going to be back to money under the table with no numbers, no alphanumerics. Sorry, I need to just give you a second. Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
I will respond to that. पहली बात तो ये है कि the question is, yes, businesses contribute to the economy and to the prosperity and to the development of the nation. But economic activity can be done, whether one likes it or not, by moral ways or immoral ways. And I am sorry, I will also use an example with great responsibility, or as much responsibility as I have. We can also legalize prostitution and the economy will move. But as a society, we don't seem to want to do that. So
well, sex workers have rights.
Yeah,
in India, soliciting is a
many
crime.
countries
Not
finish.
actually sex work.
Barkha, let me finish. That there is still a problem there. We do not want to fully legalize some activities because they are immoral. So to me, bribing is in the same category, whatever you may call it, quid pro quo or whatever. So therefore, economic activity without any moral lens is doubtful to me. Number two, what will we do now? Indian democracy started in about 1950-51, and till 2016, if I were to ask you, Barkha, you tell me, how was Indian democracy doing from 1950 to 2016? This is a serious question. I want an answer.
No, I mean, I am the moderator. So I will pass your question on to Mr. Garg. A country. Okay, I'll answer. Okay, let me answer. Chalo, aapne mujhe pucha, let me answer. I believe in the cycle of a country, of a new country like India. There have been phases where our democracy has been diminished. There have been phases where our democracy has bounced back. And I think those debates continue. What happens between elections, the health of our institutions. We've had this debate in the 1970s.
I will respond to that. But I am only asking for a broad determination that from the start till 2016.
What is the relevance of 2016? Why 2016?
Because electoral bonds came in 2017.
So you are linking it to electoral.
Obvious,
Okay. So now, are you saying that electoral bonds have diminished democracy more than cash?
No. First answer.
More than Harshad Mehta. No. I'm answering with a question. I am saying.
No. You are not Moradi Desai. Sorry. You are not Moradi Desai.
I am certainly not Moradi Desai. I am a humble moderator and
you don't want
journalist.
to be. Anyway, let me proceed. In my opinion, if I look at the global opinion, Indian democracy was doing reasonably well. It was not the best in the world. There is no democracy which is best in the world, because democracy, as the cliche goes, democracy is a journey. It is not a destination.
Correct.
We were going okay with a 2-year hiccup in between during the emergency. Now then came electoral bonds, and they were supposed to take our democracy out of this morass of cash and bring it out to transparency with features which are non-existent. So therefore, in the 2017 or 2018 to 2024 period, given what the data has come out, although we had not asked for it to come out, let me reiterate, we now know what was going on. And the fact that there is a business and political nexus, now, at least in my distorted mind, is beyond question. Earlier,
Sir, ये पहले भी तो था.
पहले
था सूटकेस लेके पैसे लेके जाता था.
पहले था अभी है. लेकिन इसने, in my opinion, the electoral bonds introduced an additional layer of secrecy, and they made what are called quid pro quo, and which I called bribery, illegal. And that is not right for democracy.
Do you believe the previous system was better? Do you believe
no,
that? No.
Who says it was better?
Just
I need to comment.
I need to comment.
Let me complete.
Let me complete.
I need to comment.
Okay.
No, I didn't
Yeah.
get the point. I need to respond to all three
No,
points.
I have
Okay.
not
Number one.
completed. Barkha, I need to complete.
Okay, sir. Jagdeep ji, complete.
We have been working on these things since 1999. We have not got into this activity in 2018. We have been working against transparency in political funding in a variety of ways. We have also filed applications for political parties to bring them into RTI. And we have also got income tax returns of political parties. We are doing all kinds of things to improve that system. It is over and above, there came a new layer which created more complication. That layer is now gone and we are back to square one. We will continue doing that work. The system was not better by any stretch of imagination, but this system was worse.
Before I give Mr. Garg the last word,
Yes.
I'm giving you the last word because we've been talking for 60 minutes, and as Mr. Jagdeep ji had said in the beginning, we can talk for another 60. लेकिन एक comment आया है, quid pro quo always existed, it was not documented. Now India's back to square one, cash, right? Another audience member says bonds comprise only 5% of political money. 2016 to 24 is still seen an additional 95% cash in elections. Will the petitioners go after that? That's for you, Jagdeep ji. But Subhash Garg ji, please go ahead.
Yes. The first thing, I think this is a wrong statement, Mr. Chhokar, to say that electoral bonds legalized any wrong thing or bribery. The act, today you have the data that who donated to whom. This does not tell you prima facie that any illegality was done. If any illegality has been found to be done by those companies, you can use this as a collateral evidence also to prove that. The fact of its existence doesn't tell you that anything wrong was done. By the way, in the electoral bond scheme also, this was built in, that if there is any sense of crime being done or a wrong being done, the data relating to purchase of electoral bond can also be shared or will also be shared with the court. So please don't make a statement saying that electoral bonds legalized any wrongdoing. Second thing, the notions of morality change with time. You have the transgender or the gay and other marriages being made sort of crime in this country, but the same things have been made to be perfectly legal kind of thing. I think the mistake which we do is that we try to do business with a superimposed sense of morality, which is our personal and social concept. And that is where we tend to make a lot of wrong laws, subject our businesses to so many restrictions, license, permit, this and that, and make their life miserable. And then we judge them by the standard of morality which you have wrongly sort of imposed through the laws. Right.
Yeah. So there's the element of hypocrisy in the conversation.
The morality debate is not the debate which is correctly being framed here.
Okay, we must now at some point end or do a part 2 because we've been talking now well over an hour. Jagdeep ji, let me end with this point that Mr. Garg made, that when you look to the West, you have open lobbying. Lobbying is, for example, legal in the United States of America. You have open sort of political donations as well. But here, a lot of corporates have spoken to, they say, irrespective of party, the reason they wanted anonymity is fear of vindictiveness. And as long as you have too much government controlling business, you will always have businesses gravitating to the power. It doesn't matter kaun si party hai, jahan power ho, wo paise leke pahunch jayenge, right? The question simply is, as so many people in our audience have asked, now what? As the Association for Democratic Reforms, the bonds are gone. Now what? How are we going to fund our elections?
We will fund, if you ask the opinion of, first of all, there was a point that you mentioned I wanted to respond to.
About changing morality and hypocrisy in
वो तो गर्ग साहब ने कहा था. गर्ग साहब के तो रिस्पॉन्ड मेरी है कि he said I should not make the statement with due apology, sir. I will make that statement and I will stick to that, whatever the statement
कोई बात नहीं.
लेकिन बरखा आपने कहा था कि जो पार्टी पावर में होती है उसके पास लोग पैसे लेके पहुंच जाते हैं. तो ये बात ठीक है कि गलत है? अब
गलत है ना.
तो
लेकिन जब ये सब करते हैं तो may as well sunlight be the best disinfectant. हमें पता होना चाहिए कि कौन क्या कर रहा है.
अगर ये बात गलत है तो इसको लीगल जामा पहनाने की जरूरत क्या थी? और मैंने आपको पहले कहा, जो अब बात करेंगे, जो हम करते आए हैं, हम पॉलिटिकल पार्टियों की फंडिंग को ट्रांसपेरेंट करवाना चाहते हैं. एंड हाँ, मिस्टर गे गिव एन एग्जांपल ऑफ दिस सेम सेक्स एक्टिविटी एंड दे सेड पहले वो इलीगल था, अब लीगल हो गया. ये तो सर वहां जाने की क्या जरूरत है? इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड स्कीम पहले लीगल थी, अब इलीगल हो गई. तो ये तो बदलती रहती है चीजें.
नो प्रॉब्लम.
That's fine. No problem. Absolutely no problem.
That's fine.
Barkha,
this is the law of the land now.
Yeah.
So there is no problem.
But I am only giving for an example of something which was legal has become illegal.
Yes. So there is nothing permanent.
Okay. I think
to answer your question, Barkha,
yes.
I need to respond.
Please,
when demonetization happened, the whole country was told that now we are moving towards a digital economy. And people were asked कि अगर आपको रिक्शे वाले को पैसे देना है 20 रुपए तो आप पेटीएम से दीजिए, सब्जी वाले को पेटीएम से दीजिए. पेटीएम in these days is under a cloud or whatever, but there are enough UPIs and we are a world leader in UPI. If the whole country can go cashless, why can't political parties go cashless? Why can't political parties take all their donations, all their income and all their expenditure digitally? And there will be no problem. But I know this vindictiveness. Yes, you say वो एक political
vindictiveness.
हाँ. Now, who is vindictive to whom? A political party, whichever be it, is vindictive to the donors of another political party, and all political parties are guilty of this. So this is a problem created by what I would call irresponsible behavior of all political parties.
Okay.
And political parties, I have a solution. Political parties need to behave responsibly in a democracy. If they do not, then the society has to make a law for them. So there should be a law governing the functioning of political parties, which will require them to be demonstrably internally democratic and also be financially transparent. That is the solution.
Okay.
Barkha, I would end with this, and I think we should close it.
Yes.
The pious hope lies eternally in the minds of all of us. Let's hope the hope of Mr. Chhokar gets realized.
I am very hopeful that for 60 minutes we've had a good conversation. That should give us hope. We've disagreed, we've smiled, थोड़ी हंसे भी, थोड़े रोए भी, थोड़ा argue भी किया, थोड़े
then after Mr. Garg's statement, all I can say is Amen.
Okay, we end on a note of agreement. I think we can finally close. Amen to that. Thank you, Subhash ji. Thank you, Jagdeep ji. And thank you to a very involved audience. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye. All the best.
Bye-bye. Thank you. All the best.
Mojo Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of a story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.